Man thinks he saved a rabbit. When the vet sees it, he turns pale. A man found an unusual bald rabbit near his house. He felt sorry for the poor thing and gave it shelter in his home. However, when the man took the rabbit to the vet opened his mouth in surprise and couldn't believe his eyes. Daniel Campbell, a 35-year-old programmer working for Smollett Company, lived in a peaceful suburb of Seattle. He cherished his cozy home, complete with a small garden, where he shared his life with Beanie, his loyal dog. One evening, as Daniel was preparing dinner, Beanie's sudden and intense barking echoed from the yard, something entirely out of character for the usually calm dog. Curious and concerned, Daniel wiped his hands, stepped onto the porch, and found Beanie near a lilac bush, barking furiously at something hidden within its shadows. As Daniel approached, he noticed a peculiar creature curled up beneath the lilac bush. It was about the size of a large rat, but its skin was hairless and pink. Intrigued, Daniel gently parted the branches for a better view. To his surprise, it appeared to be a baby animal, perhaps an unusual type of rabbit or a rare species of rodent. The tiny creature shivered and let out faint, plaintive squeaks, tugging at Daniel's heartstrings. Feeling a surge of compassion for the tiny creature, Daniel decided to bring it inside. He carefully scooped up the trembling animal and carried it into the house. Using a cardboard box, he created a makeshift nest, lining it with a soft towel to keep the little one warm. Unsure of its dietary needs, Daniel placed 2 small saucers nearby, one filled with water and the other with warm milk, hoping to provide some comfort for his unusual new guest. All night, Daniel couldn't sleep, thinking about the unusual animal. In the morning, he called his friend, veterinarian Scott Collins. Scott agreed to examine the strange find and asked Daniel to bring the animal to the clinic. Daniel carefully placed the cub in a large bag and went to the vet. At the clinic, Dr. Collins was very surprised to see the unusual bald patient, but he agreed to examine it. He measured, weighed, and listened to the animal's heartbeat. After the examination, Scott shook his head puzzledly. He admitted that he had never seen anything like it before. In his opinion, it could be the baby of some exotic rodent, but he couldn't determine the exact species yet. The veterinarian conducted tests and did an X-ray to make sure the animal was okay. Scott assured Daniel the cub was healthy but required special care. He provided a milk formula and showed Daniel how to feed it with a pipette. Daniel decided to temporarily keep the cub, naming it Jewel for its pink skin. He bought a small cage and set it up with essentials. The first few days were challenging, with Daniel feeding Jewel every 2 hours, even at night. Beanie, his dog, was curious about the new housemate and often watched the cub by its cage. As Jewel grew stronger, it eagerly drank milk, explored its cage, and sprouted its first sparse hairs. Daniel frequently shared updates with Dr. Collins, seeking advice on Jewel's care. After a week, Daniel decided that Jewel was strong enough to be let out of the cage for a while. He fenced off part of the living room, creating a safe area for the animal to roam. Jewel turned out to be very curious and active. It happily explored the new space, moving its paws amusingly. One day, Daniel was surprised to find that Jewel had climbed onto Beanie's back and was comfortably settled in its thick fur. The dog patiently allowed Jewel to climb on its back, creating such a heartwarming sight that Daniel couldn't resist taking photos. As days passed, Jewel grew rapidly, its body now covered in soft, sparse fur and its eyes fully opened. Daniel noticed its unusually large front paws with sharp claws and began to wonder what kind of animal it truly was. Dr. Collins shared Daniel's curiosity and consulted colleagues, combing through literature to identify Jewel's species, but none of the descriptions matched. Meanwhile, Jewel became increasingly active at night, often escaping the cage and causing minor chaos. Daniel frequently woke to find furniture climbed, drawers opened, and messes scattered around the living room. Despite strengthening the cage and locking it at night, Jewel proved to be a clever escape artist, a true little Houdini. Somehow, it managed to escape even from the most secure locks. Daniel had to come to terms with the nocturnal adventures of his unusual pet. About 2 weeks passed since Daniel found Jewel. One night, he was awakened by an incredibly loud noise coming from the first floor. It sounded like a whole gang of robbers was in the house. Daniel jumped out of bed, grabbed a baseball bat, and cautiously went downstairs. What he saw left him stunned. The living room was a mess, furniture overturned, books scattered, and torn curtains. But amidst the chaos, he saw something extraordinary. Jewel was joined by two more bald cubs, and a large furry creature resembling a giant guinea pig stood over them. Frozen in disbelief, Daniel watched as the animal noticed him and let out a low growl. Slowly backing away, he left the room and shut the door behind him. With shaking hands, Daniel called Dr. Collins, who answered despite the late hour. Daniel quickly explained the situation and pleaded for urgent help. Scott, hearing about the unusual guests, agreed to come to Daniel's house right away. While Daniel waited for the veterinarian's arrival, he cautiously watched the animals through a crack in the door. The large animal, apparently a female, was tenderly licking the cubs. Jewel seemed completely at ease in the company of its kin. 20 tense minutes later, Dr. Collins arrived, equipped with a tranquilizer and a sturdy net in case the animals were aggressive. Daniel quickly explained the situation, and they cautiously entered the living room. Upon seeing the unusual animals, Dr. Collins froze for a moment before bursting into laughter. "I can't believe I didn't guess earlier," he said, slapping his forehead. "These are wombats." Daniel stared in confusion as Scott explained that the large creature was an Australian wombat with 3 cubs, somehow thousands of miles from their natural habitat. Dr. Collins carefully approached the animals, speaking in a soothing tone. To Daniel's surprise, the wombat mother remained calm, watching the humans warily but showing no signs of aggression. Scott examined the animals and confirmed that they were healthy. Though a bit thin, he assumed that the female wombat had escaped from illegal animal traffickers and had taken refuge in Daniel's basement where she had given birth. Daniel remembered the strange sounds from the basement that he had been ignoring all this time when one of the cubs made its way outside. But he noticed it, and Daniel picked it up, not knowing that the others were hiding in his basement. Scott contacted the Wildlife Protection Center for help with the wombats. While waiting for the staff to arrive, Daniel and Scott discussed how the animals ended up there. The veterinarian explained that wombats are protected in Australia and their export is restricted. Most likely, the family fell victim to smugglers. A team from the center arrived with special cages to safely transfer the wombats. Daniel stood by with a heavy heart, watching as Jewel and its family were gently loaded for their journey. He couldn't help but worry about their future, but the staff reassured him that the animals would receive excellent care and soon return to their natural habitat. Meanwhile, a police investigation was underway. Detectives interviewed Daniel and his neighbors, combing through surveillance footage for clues. A few weeks later, their efforts paid off. The authorities uncovered a criminal ring involved in the smuggling of rare animals from Australia and Africa. Daniel was stunned by the scale of the illegal operation. The experience opened his eyes to the critical importance of wildlife protection, inspiring him to take a more active role in conservation efforts. Daniel's connection to the wombats deepened as he began volunteering at the center, helping care for them and other animals. Jewel, along with its brother and sister, grew rapidly under his watchful eye. During this time, Daniel discovered fascinating details about wombats, their incredible burrowing skills, nocturnal habits, and even their peculiar cube-shaped droppings. After 3 months of care and rehabilitation, the wombats had fully recovered. The team decided it was time to release them back into their natural habitat, marking the end of an unforgettable chapter in Daniel's life. Daniel was filled with mixed emotions as he prepared for the journey. It took several weeks to arrange the transportation, and when the day of departure finally arrived, he bid a heartfelt farewell to the wombats. This experience had profoundly impacted his life, and saying goodbye was bittersweet. A month later, Daniel received photos of the wombats thriving in an Australian wildlife reserve. As he looked at the pictures, a smile spread across his face. He knew that little Jewel, the quirky and mischievous creature, would always hold a special place in his heart. Its antics had not only brought joy, but also played a key role in uncovering a major international crime. What an incredible story! If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.